Hey, 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 visionaries. This is Shalita, the Nonprofitista O'Neill. Y'all know my mission is to help business owners and community organizers to launch and revitalize nonprofits that will rebuild their communities. We are back for another hashtag nonprofit no filter live. Happy Tuesday. And I'm so excited to be introducing you to one of my mentors. We go way, way back. Look, I've been hearing y'all talk about wanting to start a housing program, a group home, transitional housing for foster youth, for returning citizens, for veterans, whatever the population, right? Y'all know I used to run an emergency housing program back in the day. But Mr. Walt McNeil, Executive Director of Challengers Independent Living, Inc., has been doing it for 20 years. So if you're going to hear it from somebody, you need to hear it from the man himself. So hold on one second. Let me bring him on here. Hey, my Walt.
Hey, Shalita, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for coming and being with us today.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. Long overdue.
I know, right?
I'm just saying.
Where you gonna have me on? As y'all can see, like me and Walt go way back. I have tremendous respect for him in so many different aspects as an individual, for the work that he's been doing. Y'all know it's very close to my heart. Young people in the foster care system, that's where a lot of my advocacy has been over the years. And so being able to, work with Walt and then work under Walt and, has been really a blessing to me. And I just want to read a little bit of the bio so you know who we're talking to. Okay. So Walt is a native Baltimorean, go Baltimore, who graduated from Coppin State College, which is now Coppin State University, with a bachelor's of social work, a bachelor's of social science, and received his master's of social work degree from the University of Maryland School of Social Work. Woo, woo. He is a recipient of numerous awards and citations as a result of his over 20 years of experience providing housing, therapeutic supports, and independent living services for young adults that are in the foster care system. So without further ado, Walt, tell us more about Challenges Independent Living. Like, what led you to start the organization and to focus on foster youth?
All right, well, I'm gonna start from the beginning. How about I do that?
Oh, okay.
So when I was at Coppin, of course, as an African American man growing up in the Baltimore city, projects, I went to school, to become a professional baseball player. And so, as that dream, sort of kind of wings away, and, the reality of, that was like 2% of people who actually attempt to make the pros only make it is a very small number. And so, in my junior year, I realized that, I should have a plan B. And so, and I stumbled across social work. And my first project in my social work class was to find things that was going on in the community out in the paper. Because back in the day, so I'm gonna date myself, in the newspaper, right? You had to find things that's going on in the community and then write a paper on it. And so I was just looking through things, and a big story was going on about this young lady, a 10-year-old little girl who had numerous reports to Baltimore City Department of Social Services, Child Protective Services. And so it was like, eventually, the father killed the young girl. They found her like 2 doors from her house, right? Numerous times, Child Protective Services go out to this girl's house, and and it was unfounded. And so, of course, the big deal was, the Baltimore City Department of Social Services executive director was fired because of this. It was big in the paper back then. This is maybe 1987. And so, and this person got fired, and I was like, wow. I said, well, what is Department of Social Services? And, and how can a person, who's from, the community, how can I help? Because, it just touched me so. And so, and then, I think social work is the direction I want to go, because I wanted to be a engineer, because engineer was making like $80,000 off the break. So I was like, yeah, so I was like, well, I'm gonna be an engineer, everybody want to be an engineer because they want to make the money. But then I found my calling, man, and I never looked back, and so when I went to the University of Maryland School of Social Work, same thing. Said in my community organization class says find a population in our society whose needs aren't being addressed, then write a program to address those needs. Of course, I'm interested in foster care, and so I realized that kids who are aging out of the foster care system were not receiving services that were appropriate to the needs that they have to be able to survive ongoing post foster care.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, the key word is ongoing. So so the literature says 12 to 18 months after foster care, kids suffer their greatest hardships. 12 to 18 months. Well, what happens after that? So which means I'm only 22 or 23 years old. What happens after that? And so that was my thing, man. I said, I saw kids that I was working in foster care leave foster care, couch surfing, becoming homeless. And I said, something has to be done. I worked at an agency where, we had endless, I'm gonna use the word, endless resources, but we weren't using those resources to help those kids. And so I said, well, my teachers really liked the paper that I wrote about the population. He said, your program makes sense. You ought to try for yourself. And so that was the birth of Challenges. I mean, it took about 2 years to get it started, but it was worth it. And we've been in business now for 21 years, served over 1,000 kids. Endless. When I say endless success stories, of course, there's a lot of them that run success, but a lot of success stories. So, the program is doing what it's supposed to do. We could be a lot better. We're still trying to get better. We're evolving. 20 years in foster care, 20 years as a nonprofit organization is not enough. You got 100-year-old programs in the state of Maryland, 100-year-old programs. And they still trying to figure that thing out. So my little 20 years is nothing.
Don't you downplay your little 20.
Absolutely. There's only 20 though. I'm being around for another 20 though.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. You're still looking like you're 20 though. So go ahead. You got time.
That's salt pepper though. That's salt pepper.
Whatever. Tell us more about the 2 years that it took you to get Challenges up and running. Like, what were the types of things that you were doing? Who were you talking to?
The biggest challenge. I mean, you can have, the greatest, I guess, program or the greatest service in the world that you want to do or mission. There you go. But it requires money, and so that was, I think, for us. I mean, once I figured out, how to do this, and talking to, the Office of Children, Youth, and Families, talking with Department of Human Resources back then, which is now the Department of Human Services, about what we want to do, and they all were interested. So, so off the break, as soon as I started talking to them about it and told them what I wanted to do, they were like, well, this doesn't exist right now. We think that, this is a really good program. So what you need to do, get COMAR regulations, learn it, put together some policies and procedures, do this licensing application, right? And by the time I'm finished, this licensing application is the size of a phone book. And so, and so in those 2 years, people say, what were you doing those 2 years? I was writing out licensing application. In those 2 years, that's what I was doing.
What is COMAR? What is COMAR? Yeah.
All right, so COMAR are the regulations that kind of govern how different agencies, right, social service or child welfare agencies, including schools, operate in Maryland. And so each have their own section. So there's an independent living section, there's a group home section. Independent living is under child placement agencies. Independent living is under residential child care section, right? So so you have to learn your section, and then you have to develop policies to say how your program will be compliant with those sections. So so your license application is about that, your ability to demonstrate that I can be compliant with COMAR regulations. And so and that's that 2 years, man. It was a learning curve for us, and then we spent that time. But then once you get those things done, now you need a facility, now you need staff, now you need money. And so that was another challenge, because there's a new agency who don't have a history besides my good name and besides the work that I've done as a social worker. That's all I had. Unfortunately, grants and foundations were like, well, you don't really have a track record. So, we was trying to, that was hard to do, so, just building relationships. And then I went to the Associated Black Charities, and they had like a beginners, like a nonprofit program. And so, of course, I got involved in that. And it was just talking about, maybe grant organizations or foundations aren't the way to go. You should focus more your energy on individuals. And so that's what we did. We started going on an individual track because, building a relationship with individuals connects you to other people. And eventually they'll connect you to somebody who's connected to a foundation. So, and that's what it was, man, to get all our money. And then, we got some money from grants and some individuals donated, but we still weren't there yet because you have to have at least 3 months of operating capital when you start a child welfare agency. Most people don't know that. 3 months. You got a $1.2 million budget. You probably need about $100,000, right, to operate. Where that comes from, So what I did to kind of bridge that gap, I actually took out a second mortgage on my house to get it started. So you got to roll the dice, man. If I'm gonna bet on anybody, I'm betting on Wally Wall. That's what I did.
That's the beautiful thing, though. You gotta have an entrepreneur spirit. You gotta be able to take risks and know that where you're putting your investment in. You knew you were investing in a dream that needed to happen, and you were gonna get the return on it, but you had to put that up initially.
I'm gonna tell you something, and I say this to my staff all the time. I didn't think twice about that when I was going to do it because it was for a cause, right? And for the most part, I've considered myself, blessed. And so, but when you do things, and you do it like altruistically, out of the kindness of your heart, and that this isn't for the betterment of other people, you will get blessed for it. Not that that's why you're doing it, but I truly believe that karma will come back to you. By the time we opened up our doors in October of 1998, by that spring, all the money that I had put out and that equity line of credit I had was completely paid off. And Walter McNeil was completely out of it. Challenges Independent was his own entity, separate my own personal finances, which it should be.
Yes. And y'all that are watching, come on now. If you have questions or comments, come on in here and ask Walt, because don't say you don't know how to do something when it comes to starting a housing program or just an organization overall, because there's so many things that go into building an organization and being around for 20 years, regardless of whether you have housing or whatever type of services that you're providing. So, come on in here and ask some questions. We got Jamie on here. Look, hold up. You can check in over here. Let me come on over here and check in. James says, hey, y'all. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Jane. Miss Marva. Hey, Miss Marva. Miss Marva is one of my clients, and she is actually starting an organization to help young people that are aging out of foster care too. And she wants to have a housing component at some point. So yes, Miss Marva, I'm so glad that you're here. And we've got a few people that have tagged some folks. I hope y'all come on in here. Jamie said, tell him he's my hero.
Thank you.
And hi, Eli. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Y'all come on in here. Phenomenal Fee. Hey, happy Tuesday. Just wanted to give you a shout out. Yes, Phenomenal Fee. Okay, watch out. Okay. So tell us more about, we talked about, and I want to go back to that because I don't want to gloss over that, when you talked about funding and how individuals are super important in that, because, and I say that all the time, individuals lead to those foundations or private dollars or the contracts. How did you secure your first contract though? Because you did say that you went directly to Department of Social Services, which, depending on what state you all are in, you have a Department of Social Services, or you have a state agency that's responsible for working for the services or contracts for foster youth. So you need to be finding out who that is or what contact is within that agency and reaching out. But how did you go about doing it, Walt?
Yeah, that's something about knowing the lay of the land. And it's something that, which was new to me because all I knew was Department of Social Services. But in the state of Maryland, there's two different agencies, right, that are a key to running a child welfare agency. The first one, of course, is Department of Human Services, right? And so what they are the licensing body of child welfare. These are the ones who license you and make sure you're compliant with COMAR regulations that we talked about earlier. And then the second one, where you get your contract, is Social Services Administration. So now, when I was going through the contract, when I was going through the licensing part of it, of course, licensing doesn't talk about contracts until you are through the licensing process. And so once I finished the licensing process, I thought that maybe I could start seeing kids. And they say, no, we only license you. We don't have anything to do with you getting a contract. And I'm like, whoa, well, where I go from that? And who do I need to speak to? And so, once you get licensed, they'll connect you to a contracts coordinator. Now, your contract could be, say, if I would have a program when I want 18 beds, right? The state may only need 12 of those beds. So even though your facility is licensed for 18, they give you a contract for 12. You can go to DJS, which is a different agency. You can go to DDA, which is another different agency, and get kids from those types of programs to kind of balance out your 18. So I'm only interested in, and I would say highly functioning kids who are about to age out of the foster care system, because, I know that, this particular population is the bulk of the population for one, but for the most part, a lot of mental health issues that need to be addressed, and then we can improve their level of functioning. So, I wasn't interested in DJS. So our contract that we originally asked for was 12. They gave us 7. And so, so I had 5 beds that were empty for about 6 months. But I guess they wanted us to prove ourselves. And so, after those first 6 months, man, we were rocking and rolling. And by the end of that fiscal year, man, all 12 of those beds was full. And so, and we haven't looked back since then. But that process of getting a contract is different than getting a license. And not anyone can get a license. If you follow COMAR regulations and you do all the things that they ask you to do in your application process, you can get a license. But that doesn't put you in business. That just says you have a licensed facility. What puts you in business, where you actually start receiving funds from the state, is your contract. And so, and that's a big deal, because your budget is connected to your contract. So if you say, I want to do independent living costs about $100 a day, right, per kid. So your contract has to meet the numbers that are in guidelines that the state give you. And so once we did that, and we got our contract, it was, I guess, downhill from there.
Well, I love how you broke it down, because these are things that you don't know unless you actually get licensed to provide the services. Excuse me. So tell us more about how your program is structured, because you have different types of housing. Like, you have a process, so to speak, where young people come into your program at a certain, even though they are referred at different ages, ideally them coming to your program at 15, they're able to experience different types of housing and supports. Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Yeah. That I think one of the fallacies of foster care sometimes, of course, everyone gets a service agreement, and the goal, of course, is unification. We want to get kids home as quickly as possible. But, we've identified, and the numbers bear this out. This is not just walks, like dream. The numbers bear this out, is that there's a population of kids who enter foster care at a young age, and they do not return home, right? They call these kids APLA kids now, right? Another planned, living placement. That's what they call them now, APLA, right? And so, if you have kids who have APLA as their service agreement, why do we wait for those kids to turn 20 and then put them in the living program to try to teach them life skills, right? We recognize that. So we have the independent living program. We also have our transitional program, which is Birthplace and Birthplace 2, house males and females who are between the ages of 15 to 18. So the goal of Birthplace and Birthplace 2 is to provide a continuum of care, but catch our kids earlier so that they can start practicing these life skills, start washing their own clothes, cleaning up their room, having chores, get academically stable and get emotionally stable. That's the key. An academically stable and emotionally stable kid will function at a much higher level in an independent living program. But what we tend to see is when kids, come from different places where they didn't have an opportunity to be transitioned to independent living, they don't do as well. And their outcomes are a lot less or a lot, I guess, worse than, kids who actually have a transitional process. And, and I think there are enough kids, that can feed IOP programs when it's done this way. So, so we have the transitional program from 15 to 18. Then the IOP is from 18 to 21. But in our IOP, we have a program called Challengers Advance, which for our like 20-year-olds, where they can move into the community and truly get an opportunity to practice infant life skills in their own apartment with their name on a lease, where they actually got this apartment on their own merits. Whereas, they had a job, now they have, work history, they have pay stubs that they can show, and they'll get an opportunity to get rental history. And these are the things that they're going to need when they turn 21. But that place that they're going to live will be a place where they'll live beyond foster care. So they transition to their own place where they're going to live, but they've had services for that whole year while they're in them. And we give each of those kids an $1,100 a month stipend so that they can supplement the income that they already have to learn how to practice paying those bills and saving towards emancipation.
Y'all hear that? So it's a process, right? You got to really think about how you're going to service the young people that you're working with. And that's going to determine what kind of housing you provide, or what kind of services and resources that you're going to provide to them, because the whole point is to have an impact. Like Walt said, to be able, when they transition out, that they'll know what it's like to be able to live independently or interdependently, being able, because everybody depending on somebody in some way, right? But can you tell us more about, some of the stuff that folks really don't understand when it comes to running a housing program? So, for instance, you have apartments that the young people live in, part of the independent living program. When they get older, you have the houses, right? Where the young people, they'll have their own room. They're younger, they have their own room. They're kind of, getting stable, like you said. Like, what are some things that people need to understand about this population that they would not know if they did not have a housing program?
Right. Well, I mean, stay with me. I'm gonna say this because I always got to preface this before I say it. Because I remember when I first started out with Challengers, and then I thought I was the independent living guru, right? Because I've gone to a lot of trainings, and so it's an unmotivated population, right? Now, when I say that, right, she said, "You're scaring me."
Mama, don't be scared.
It's an unmotivated population, and I only say this just to get the mindset of an individual who's working with this population in the right mind, in the right frame of thought, right? Because when you think about a kid who's in foster care, you only come in foster care for three things: abuse, abandonment, neglect, right? We only know what was the precipitating issue that brought this kid into foster care. But if I live in a house where I've been traumatized for, say, 7 years, right? I come in foster care at the age of 10. But those last 7 years, right, I've been living in this situation, but I only know, that one incident that brought him in. I don't know this kid's history, right? So I understand, the disconnect. I understand, the PTSD that our kids go through, the depression, the anxiety. All those things are things that affect why this kid is not motivated. So when I say an unmotivated population, I'm understanding that this kid has some deficits and some issues from his past that affects how he thinks going forward. I can understand why kids, who lived in some horrible situations may be hopeless, or maybe feel helpless, or maybe feel like, whatever I do, it doesn't matter anyway. It's going to end up bad anyway. I get that. So don't get me wrong when I say unmotivated, because my understanding of your lack of motivation drives me to understand what I need to do to help you become motivated. I think Maryland's foster care system is one of the greatest systems in the world. And I have no bones about this. I've talked to other people in other places. Our system is pretty good. The resources that we've been able, and you, Shalita, have been, in the front of advocacy saying what these kids need. The Tuition Waiver Act, that's huge. What? Graduate from college, I have a bill when you leave. That alone is a resource. Having kids that gone to college, I know
Yeah.
that is a great resource,
Yeah,
right?
that's in there. That's still in there.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, I digress, right? So stay with me for a
Right,
second.
no, it's all good.
So the population, right? I mean, again, of course, mental illness is a big part of it, right? And so our thing is getting our kids emotionally stable. And being able to assess our kids and find out, what are those deficits, getting them accurately, diagnosed, advocating for them when they are on medications and medication management, whether or not, this is the right cocktail for this kid, or advocating that this kid does not need this. Because sometimes, our professionals walk in there and talk to a kid for 10 minutes and they come out there with 5 different prescriptions and you take them right back in there. Hey, I was with this kid for like the last 6 months. He does not. you know, you are now the parent. So if you had your child, you took your child to a doctor, he came back with 5 prescriptions. Are you just going to accept it, or you want to make sure this is the right thing for your child? And that's why I always say to my staff, I say, look, we're social workers, we have licenses, and we're professionals. But at the same token, we're in charge for taking care of these kids, and our kids know it and see right through it when a staff is not genuine. They know who have their back and who does not. That it's a
That's
challenge of population. Exactly, right.
that's
It's a
survival
challenge
piece.
of population. hmm
What you say?
It's a challenge of population because they're only 15 to 20 years old. What happens with your kids when they're 15 to 20? Well, your boy on his way. I'm telling you now, he's on his way.
Don't you
Then
know?
you
You know.
calling me now. My husband's trying to ring his neck. Let me talk to him for a second. Let me talk to him one second.
I got like
What
4 years.
about?
Oh, no, I'm not ready.
And he been living that little garden that you put out back. I'm telling you,
Yup. He's gonna be in the greenhouse. He
little
ain't gonna
green.
play with me.
Don't do that about that. Don't do that. So, I mean, at adolescence, right? You got those kids that start, like rebelling. And that's just a natural order of things. And so, so now I'm in foster care, I'm in adolescence, I'm supposed to be rebelling, I'm trying different things in the community. I want to do the group unification, which is also within the things they're supposed to do according to Craig Erickson, right? Developmental, around 15, 14 years old. And then I gotta identify sexually, which way I want to go. It's a whole bunch of stuff going on with this population. But now we add, because I'm in foster care, where am I going to live at the age of 21 when this all ends? That's a lot on that plate, man. That's your population.
Yep.
That's your
And
population.
I'm glad you said that because people will just think, okay, well, I'm going to provide housing. This is going to be wonderful. They're going to see be appreciative of everything that I'm doing. And nah, like, they are teenage developmentally. They are supposed to not be appreciative. They're supposed to push back. But then, like what Walt said, when you add on the other layers of things that they're dealing with from foster care, mental health, and all these different pieces, then, you really have to be prepared and you have to make sure that you hire the right people. Like Walt said, he has licensed social workers who are trained in how to deal with this population and work with them. So, for y'all to don't be discouraged, be prepared and know going in that these are things that I have to do. Now, I know that on top of what we talked about, there's also insurances. Like you have to, you're talking about getting licensed, which also may be part of the licensing part, getting insurances. But what kinds of insurances, Walt, do you have to carry because of all the different liabilities that, you have to make sure you're ready for?
Right. Well, indemnification insurance is one thing you need because you got a board of directors, right? Because you're a nonprofit organization. Your nonprofit does not exist without a board of directors, right? So, you got to make sure, that they're protected. And, when you're a nonprofit, you, founder and CEO, does not own your company. Your board of directors own your company.
Hold on, wait a minute, what? Say it again.
You, founder and CEO, does not own your company. Your board of directors own your company. Because people think how nonprofits work. A board of directors, that board is formed first, right? Then they go out and find a CEO. But in our situation, right, where we're founders and CEOs, we go find our board, but we go find our bosses, in other words, right? So we can pick and choose. Like, I don't know if I want you to be my boss. But
Right.
according to the law, right, they are our bosses. At some point, if they vote, they can vote you out. So, of course, I always tell, like CEOs of nonprofits, you got to get a golden parachute. Now, my thing is, I love challenges with all my heart, right? And I'll do this job for absolutely free, right? If I could afford to. But at the same token, I have a family. I'm a father, I'm a husband. I got 2 girls, right? I got to take care of these girls. So financially, I need some security. What provides me that security is a golden parachute. So that golden parachute is just my insurance that say that if something should happen and I have to leave challenges, not because of neglect, because a golden parachute can be null and void. If I decide, I did something crazy at challenges and I made a bad decision, I can get fired. Golden parachute's out the window. But if the board decides, you know what, we love what Walt did, he's taking challenges here, but we think that challenges can go here, we want to hire someone else, right? They can do that. But you're going to pay me my golden parachute to do it.
Now I need to go into the golden parachute, because some people call it a founder's clause. They call it all kinds of different things. So what is that golden parachute? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I call it golden parachute. Well, I got it from Fortune 500 companies, right? Fortune 500 companies, part of, what they do when the headhunters come, they talk to these people about, I can imagine headhunters, want to talk to you, but one of the things that they'll talk to you about is that, and early in my days, I would talk to headhunters about doing other stuff, but, I was like, nah, this is why I need to be. Looking back in hindsight, I probably should have run. I'm joking.
I know you said it, right?
I got that money, right? But I'm rich. I'm rich in the outcomes and stuff.
I miss you.
I ain't messing with you, girl. Anyway, right. So, your golden parachute. And so, like I said, so they'll talk to you about that. When it is like it's like a retirement plan, where it protects you financially, because chances are when you get a certain level of income, you may not be able to leave this job and roll into another job and make that kind of money. Your lifestyle that you're used to is going to drop tremendously a lot of times, right? So, and if that happens, you should be able to live the same lifestyle that you've lived. And some golden parachutes are normally time limited. Mine is 20 years. So, so at 20 years, if I leave challenges, then I get a certain salary for the next 20 years.
We're going to need to talk offline so that I can get that language.
All right. And you should, though. Yeah, you should. I actually got it from the nonprofit, Maryland Association of Nonprofits.
Maryland Nonprofits?
I got it from them.
Maryland Association of Clients, I'm going to get that for y'all. Okay, so we can see how we put that on in to the bylaws,
Your founder's clause. That's what you call it. Your founder's clause. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other stuff, too, that, like, I really didn't understand until, and that's another thing. The majority of my viewers are BIPOC or Black-led grassroots organizations or founders, right? And there's just some information that we just don't get or we don't understand because we are bent on just doing the work. Like we don't understand the business aspect of building an organization that's going to be around past us, right? So I started talking to a financial planner just about my personal finances and things.
Right.
And then, he told me, he was like, well, there's insurance policies that companies actually, nonprofits, for-profits, nonprofits will have on their executive director. So that if something were to happen to the executive director, that they would be able to, they would get a payout to the organization to either replace that person or, help bridge the gap until they're able to. Yep. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I actually just learned that maybe 2 years ago when we actually have that policy. Yeah, we actually have a policy here at Challenges. When we think about succession planning, after 20 years, that's a long time, so then, we really have to start thinking about succession planning. And, and actually, I actually have a retirement date. It's October 1st, 2028, right? That's my date. I'm out of here.
It's going to be a hard day.
Yeah, October 1st, 2028, which is my 62nd birthday. I know. No,
it ain't.
That's my 62nd birthday. And I'm out.
That's your birthday. You ain't going. You're gonna be volunteering with the organization.
I'm hoping that I can transition to the board president, right? And then I'd still be a part of it, but on the outside of it. Work more like to raise money and and advocate for the program in the community. But 2028 is actually my target date. God
Okay.
willing, everything happens, right? So
Yeah.
so when we talked about succession planning in the board meeting, we talked about that insurance. So we now
Mhm.
have that insurance in place if something should happen to me. With COVID, then COVID hit. Not long, what I'm saying, after that, anything could have happened. And I'm sure there's agencies who are actually dealing with the loss of of their CEOs and founders and CEOs. So
Yeah.
of course because we're dealing with people, we have to have the professional liability insurance. So so if my social workers say some things, or if a kid say, hey, I'm thinking about hurting myself, my social worker had got that information, that's documented, then the kid hurt themselves, your professional liability protects the organization.
Mhm.
Of course, because we have apartments and then we have the houses, we have the insurances on the houses and the apartments. So if the houses burn down, or if our apartments burn down, with challenges, our insurance have to be different, because if something happened to one of our apartments, right, and it affects
Mhm.
another person that lives in the community, challenges is liable for it. And that's happened. We've had a couple of houses, apartments that actually caught fire, and the smoke has gotten so our insurance covered it. So it costs a lot more money, for those kind of insurances. But but we have $1 million umbrella, and so
Mhm.
it kind of covers everything. All of our cars and vehicles, we have like 7 vehicles within the agency, and all the vehicles are under that $1 million umbrella. So
Mhm.
and that makes things a lot easier and more palatable when you start thinking about paying premiums.
These are the things you got to think about. Insurances and succession planning. People think, okay, well, I'm gonna be running my organization forever. And no, there's gonna be things that you want to do after you leave. But the fact that you have a date and you're looking ahead, you're planning ahead, and you're like, this is what I want to happen, is really
Right.
important, because some people just be winging it, like, I'm just gonna be here. No, you gotta think about those things. Who's gonna replace you? What kind of insurances that you have in place to be able to make sure the organization doesn't take a huge hit? What kind of moves do you want to move into the board president position, so you could still be a part, like Walt said, or do you want to be a consultant to I've seen people, become a consultant to the organization
Yeah.
they started, so they
Hmm.
can still get funding or still get paid in some capacity, but really be
Hmm.
thinking about, this overall. Well, tell us more about how has COVID, the Rona, okay, has upended a lot for
Hmm.
everybody, especially young people that are in foster care and people who serve them. Like, how has your organization, been affected, and what have you been doing to try to, get through this?
Yeah, I think we've been blessed. First of all, we've been blessed that we've had 2 staff that tested positive from corona.
Mm,
Both of them, thankfully, prayerfully, survived.
yeah.
No, one of them didn't have any symptoms. Woke up one morning with a headache. Took her temperature, and her temperature was pretty high. So she was
Hmm.
like, I'm not coming to work. I'm gonna go and get tested. Got tested, came back positive. So she did a quarantine, self quarantine, everything. Then the other one actually ended up with pneumonia, and was out for about a month.
Oh,
Came back, just recently came back to work, doing a lot better.
no. Okay.
We didn't have any kids, knock on wood, that actually tested positive. We get them tested as often as we can, but initially we couldn't get any kids tested, and so our biggest challenge was getting our kids to stay home, right?
Mm,
But the kids, like, we brought video games, and we just asked kids, what do you need at home for you to stay home, just to entertain them,
mm.
right? Well, we want some PlayStation 4, we want Call of Duty, we want 2K21, we want so and so. Hey, you ain't saying nothing but a bird, bruh. I got
Right.
online, Amazon Slim, said all that stuff down. What you need, right? And after a
Right.
while, it was good. Everybody was home. And then after a while, cabin fever kicked in, the weather broke. And after that, man, I'm gonna play some basketball. No, you can't play basketball. You can't practice social distancing playing basketball. And so the
Right.
kids going out in the community, we put screening things in place. So when the kids come back, we got to spray them down with Lysol. They got to take their clothes off at the pantry door. You got to wash them. I mean, it was crazy. It was a huge adjustment, right? I
Yeah.
think, and I was on my staff, and then trying to get PPE supplies at one point was just like crazy. Now
Mm,
we got like different venues that we can go get masks and hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So we're good on that end. But originally, man, that was our challenge. Now, today our challenge is virtual schooling, because at one point we had, like a lot of like computers and stuff like that around in the agencies. But kids have smartphones and they rarely use our computers. Our computers have dust on them. So then now with the virtual school is true, right? And so we realized our computer systems are outdated. And so we just recently we're in the process now of updating our computer systems, and I'm in with the kids in independent living, getting them hotspots so that they can do virtual schooling in their own apartment. Because we're still practicing social distancing. Kids still have to wear a mask when they come to the offices, and in the group homes they have to wear a mask throughout the day, and so that's been the challenge for us with Corona. Yeah, but I mean, it's coming along, and I tell my staff, I said, I know you guys are developing a tolerance for it, but don't drop your guards, because this thing is still out there and it's still hurting people. And people are still dying from it.
Whew, it's still out there. Well, let's go over here to the comments and see what we got over here. So we got it says customer service. All right. It says, have either one of you worked with nonprofits for the arts?
Well,
have you worked? Well, maybe, and the way that I would answer that is, I've been in collaboration with organizations that, that focus on the arts, like, Art with a Heart.
Yeah, well, I had this place. They used to come there and see those kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've collaborated, with organizations that work in the arts. So if there's a specific question that you have, go ahead and drop it in the comment section, and I'll see if we can get an answer for you. And Patricia, she said, that's what I want to do with my transitional home. Good. I'm glad that you were able to hear it firsthand from Walt about the process, right? Because some people will say they want to have a housing program, but you got to understand that young people are coming to you at different phases and they need different things and different ages, right? So being able to have sort of like a menu, a menu of services, housing services for them is really important. And she also said she loves your transition system. That's because it's challenges, it's challenges. It's not a challenge, it's a challenge. You can get over the challenge. What's the tagline?
Not a problem.
There we go. It's a challenge, not a problem.
That's right.
Okay, and let's see. And look, yep. And Eshawn, hey Eshawn. She said preparation is key. Absolutely. And she just just launched a housing program too, as well. So congratulations, Eshawn. She's an alumni.
Yeah. Okay, congratulations, y'all.
I'm forgetting where you are, but I don't know if it's Arizona or let us know where you at so we can shout you out. Because she did that thing. And Patricia says, what type of certificates or degrees would you recommend we as founders get to run a successful transitional home for youth? And are there classes we can take to help run a great nonprofit?
Yeah, well, of course, you can go to nonprofit, Maryland Association of Nonprofits, and they will tell you everything you need to know in order to start. And of course, Shalita knows everything. So, but Maryland Association of Nonprofits also have classes that they have. And I always, like, when I was told when I got out of school was, join Maryland Nonprofits now because it's according to your budget. Like when we first started out, our annual dues was less than $100, but now we're a multi-million-dollar organization. It's down in the thousands. Yeah. It's based off your budget. Yeah,
it's like stepping up, you step into new responsibility, right?
Yeah,
new level.
And I'm like, what? So I'm like, wait a minute. So how much? Because from 90, so I was paying like $76 until challenges opened up, and then so you have to submit your budget. Then they sent me a bill, and I was like, well, what is this? This is based off your budget. So that's why they say join before you start and get all the service you need. I mean, of course, once you get started, it's good because they got have lawyers and things like that they can connect you to, but it's a part of your membership. But but in order to run a child welfare agency, the CEO has to be a licensed social worker. Check that out, Kumar regulations.
We do have people that are joining other states.
Oh, it may be different.
So I want to put, I think, isn't that their website? Is it Maryland Nonprofits spelled out like that?
Yep.
For those who are in Maryland, and if you're not in Maryland, there should be a I'm clicking on everything. There should be a a similar type of organization, membership organization in your state that helps to support nonprofit organizations. So looking into seeing what that is. But yeah, Walt balling. So
That's how much it costs to run the program. That's not income. Expensive
right.
income is something
Oh,
totally different. It's based
explain
off your budget. Yeah, it costs like $3.2 million to run challenges a year. Yeah,
that.
like $3.2 million. So so I mean, but yeah, and it's based off your budget, not what you actually profit. So that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference. There's a
When you're a
difference there.
nonprofit, you don't profit.
Say that again.
When you're a nonprofit, you don't profit. That's what it means. Nonprofit. Gotta
Lord.
stay focused, man.
Well, hey, you don't profit as an individual, but your
Right.
organization, depending on how you build it, can profit. Yeah. You profited. Yes, right. It's 3.2 million, man. You're doing something right. So I hope that answered your question, Patricia. I mean, really, there is find, and I'm not sure what state you're in, but find that resource in your state. And as far as getting a degree, I mean, there's certificate programs now. Now I know when I first started, I was like, I thought I needed to go to school and get a degree in nonprofit management or something like that. And that's not necessarily, it's not a necessity for you to do that. But if you want to do that, you can. But there's so many other, resources and trainings and things that you can take advantage of, but start with that nonprofit membership organization in your state. Oh, yeah, Ishan says she's in Arizona. I was right. Look at me. My memory sometimes be working. And her organization is called Onward Hope, Inc. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Alumni success.
Mm-hmm.
So Eli says, since preparation is key, are there organizations that access the risk and needs requirements while starting a new nonprofit? Like information is key also.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing, man. I think when we first started out and we were talking with the board of directors, that's the things that they were asking about. What are risks, that are associated with this deal? Again, because your board, with what is the name of the board of directors insurance?
Directors of the board.
Right. Yeah, that's
directors.
that's right. Yep. And so they were asking about that because there are some risks because you're dealing with people. And so, so we had to assess, what are those risks? But then, I think, the reward far outweigh, our risk in regards to what we're doing. If we stay compliant with the regulations that the state put in place, our risk was minimized. And I think, for us, is worth it. But, when you look at the need was, teaching them life skills, providing them with housing, and providing them with resources that will help them to prepare to be self-sufficient. That's the need. And so if you connect those resources with the kids' needs, you got the ingredients for a successful program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another big part that I always talk about when it comes to risk and needs and assessments and things like that is making sure that you are connecting with the population that you say you want to help and ask first. A lot of times we'll start organizations based off of our personal assumptions or perspective around what is needed without, really going to that population because times change. People's what I needed when I was in foster care may not be what the young person that's coming up behind me needs while they're in foster care. So making sure that you're going to different committee meetings in the community, that you are connecting with your population, talking to them and seeing what kind of issues or barriers that they experience. And Walt has done a lot of this over his 20-something years career because you sit on different, tell us more about the committees that you sit on. Like, what you're not just in your office, at the table typing.
Yeah. Well, I'm not as active as I used to be because I'm getting a little older and slowing down. So, I was doing a lot of different committees. One of them was MARFI. I'm on Maryland Association for Resources for Families and Youth. I was on their board of directors. I'm currently on the state procurement, which is the governor's appointed committee. And what that does is that's for education, social services, social services, and mental health. So, so all the different agencies are on this procurement council, right? But procurement is the state's purchasing of services. So the Social Service Administration I talked to you about getting a contract. The Procurement Council is what gives them information on what they do. So you go from trying to get a contract to people, right? Now
Right.
being on a board that actually gives direct information to the governor that says how this process will work. For example, right, one of the things the Procurement Council did, and people on the outside really don't know what happens internally, right? So I'm gonna tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you signed your contract in the past, you had to sign your contract with blue ink.
Yes, I remember that.
Right. And so people may say that's stupid. So, but what is this? If you are a CEO, right, and your contract is due on say September the 22nd, on September the 22nd, you send your contract in and you send it in with black ink. And the 22nd comes and go. On the 23rd, your contract is null and void. You don't have a program. And that was happening to people. And it's true. This stuff I'm telling you, I can't make this stuff up. That is true. And so the council was like, wait a minute, how can people lose their contract because they didn't have a blue ink pen? We got rid of that. So now I'm just saying that's a small thing, right? But think about a mom and pop organization who don't have the resources to have their contract done a month in advance, like most of those big organizations, right? When you're doing an RFP, man, I'm turning my RFP in. It says it's due at 12 o'clock, 11:58. There's challengers. Here you go. Need my receipt, right?
Very last.
There you go. Wait a minute. Wait a second. Let me write that down. Come on, man. That's how, and it's just me and my other people, right? That's all I got. But a huge organization, man, they got a whole section dedicated to RFP grant writing and stuff like that.
That's the thing, and we running down on time, so I can't even go into it's a whole nother conversation when we start talking about disparities, within systems, within nonprofit systems, within all the systems, in our country, and how that really it negatively affects the smaller organizations, which tend to be the organizations of color. So the fact that you have been around for 20 years, right, providing these services and been able to secure the support that you have is humongous, because, a lot of times the smaller grassroots organizations is really difficult. It's really difficult to get to that point because of some of these nuances that they have. But the fact that you're on the procurement committee, right, and you can be on the inside, and that's the message, that's the takeaway too for all of you that are watching is, you need to get in these rooms, and when they invite you, they say they want stakeholder or constituent participation. You need to be, you may not get paid to be at that meeting, which you don't get paid to be at those meetings, but it's good for you to be there to get information that can help you to position your organization for funding, or even those relationships with the people who are in the room, right? You're not going in there asking for money, but those people who are on that committee are also on other committees and also know other people. And so you get in that room and hey, chopping it up, going there, hey, how y'all doing?
That's right. Like, I'm gonna work the room. Oh, I'm gonna work the room.
So yeah. So let me pop on over here too and see. Okay, so and Patricia said, thank you. You in Georgia. All right, Georgia, come through, Georgia. Georgia, don't get me started with the song now. And Miss Marva, you said, did you say that in order to open a transitional foster care home, I need to be a licensed social worker? And Miss Marva, you are you're in Detroit. I think she's in Detroit, Michigan. So it might be different. Right. The requirement might be different. But in Maryland, that's the requirement in Maryland.
Yeah.
Or have someone, right? Do you as
you can.
Okay.
Right. You can have somebody who do it. I mean, I don't want to do that because that person's my boss.
And he don't want to.
Right, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I'm the founder, right? But I got a boss. That's not cool. And so but I know Maryland, but that rule changed since I opened up, and it wasn't always like that. Since Challenge opened like that about 2008, that rule changed. It said that they wanted, for child welfare agencies, they want licensed social workers, as the CEOs. Because most people had like business people as their CEOs because it's a business. You got to run it like a business. So, but they changed their rules. So we want licensed social workers as the CEO. Yeah.
All right. Well, what are the last, pieces of advice or gems that you would want to drop for the people that are listening today? And if y'all have a question, Eshawn too, especially since you just launched the transitional housing program, I know you have a lot of support, but if you got a question, pop it on in here so I can make sure you get it answered live. But in the meantime, Walt, what would you leave everybody with? What you want them to know?
One thing I know as a founder and CEO of a program is that, back in the day, I kept everything close to my vest, right? Because Challenger was a unique program that was coming into the state of Maryland. And I didn't talk with people who had similar programs to mine that much because I didn't want to share information, right? Afraid that somebody may steal my model, But what I've learned, man, is that no man's an idol. I mean, no man's an island. You have to have relationships, and that relationships is key. Not only is key to you getting more money, but it's also key for you learning things in regards to people who are on different sides of that continuum. So if you're in the beginning and you got people that's in the end, you need that information just like they need your knowledge and your energy because when on the back end, I'm not as fast as I used to be. So a new person coming in has that energy instead of that motivation and that passion to keep you going. And my thing is, man, don't do this for money. You can't do this for money. Absolutely not, because there's not enough money in the entire world that can pay you to care for somebody. It can't. In the entire world, that can pay you to care for somebody. So, you got to find, something you want to do that's passionate and, and let your passion be your guide. Because no matter who you talk to, and Shalene and I always talk about this, if you got me in a room with a grantor or a person that could potentially fund us, my passion is going to come out because I truly believe in what I'm doing. I believe in these kids, man. I think these kids have a lot to offer the world. I think they have a unique perspective. I am an absolute fan of Shalene. Shalene, I love her with all my heart. There's nothing she can't give me. Absolutely, man, because you're a hero. You're a hero, and that's what I'm talking about. So whenever I talk, I say, look, don't tell me what you can't do, because I know people do it and take it to the next level. So there's always got to be somebody you can tangibly put your hand on to say, hey, look, sit in your same seat now runs the entire country. You.
Hey, wait a minute.
You run the country.
Look. In my mind, right? But y'all, make sure you hit up Challengers and look and see more into what Walt is doing. Challengers1.org, right? That's the website. And did you want to, if they want to get in contact with you specifically, they can just go to the website and get in contact with you through there?
No, you can email me.
Okay, let me.
Same thing. Challenges1@msn.com. See how you keep things real simple?
Look, y'all look at
that.
Hold up, MSN now. You got to show your age.
Don't spend on energy on little things.
It still works. Challengers1@msn.com. If y'all are watching this, look, y'all see how just amazing he is, down to earth, approachable, and helpful he is. So especially if you're in Maryland and you're looking to start an organization, or you're trying to grow an organization that helps foster youth, or that provides some housing to foster youth, I would say you reach out to this man and see if he can be a mentor to you in some way, shape, or form. Okay, because we need. I consider, even though he ain't old, I consider him to be a nonprofit elder, right? So us new millennials, or I don't know what I'm, borderline millennial, whatever. When you come in, you need to be seeking out mentors and your nonprofit elders who can give you the lay of the land, and so that we can work together. So make sure that you reach out to Walt. And I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up, y'all. So if you like this, if this was helpful, subscribe, like, and share. Whether you're looking at it on Facebook, go ahead and like my page. Stop playing. Come on. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe so that you get these notifications. We're doing this every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern. And let me know in the comments if there's a specific topic that you want to hear about. I'm gonna try to get my connect with insurance next week. to see if she can come on here and tell y'all more about nonprofit insurances. We also have, I want y'all to mark your calendars, November 7th, we're doing our second virtual Visionaries of Color Nonprofit Summit. And so you go on the VOC, let me put it up here for you so you don't have to guess about it. vocsummit.com. And this is really for visionaries of color who are trying to look at how can they heal individually in order to heal their communities. And then also we're putting a technical spin on it. Well, how do you build your organization knowing about the racial disproportionalities and the different things that we, really don't hear about, people don't necessarily talk about. So we're going to hear from our nonprofit elders, and Walt is one of our nonprofit elders that's going to be at that event as well. So to get more information, the vocsummit.com. And if you need one-on-one coaching, all you got to do is go to my website, shalitaoneal.com. You don't have to do this alone. Look, I didn't say it. Walt said it. He said, I know what I'm talking about. So take his word for it and reach out. I'm going to hop back on. Oh, look, hit it. Look, Jamie put a little heart up there. Okay. And then, one more question I'll pop. So it says, Patricia said, as a nonprofit, do you donate one-on-one mentorship as a tax write-off to new nonprofits? She said she heard, because I heard we have not, because we ask not. So do you donating some mentorship time?
A closed mouth don't get fed.
So reach out to them, okay, if you're serious about that. All right, y'all. Until next time, be real, have fun, and get results. Thank you, Walt, so much. I love you, man. Thank you for joining us today.